Welcome back to the Real News Network. We're in San Francisco at the Momentum Conference of Tides Foundation. Joining us again is Gene Robinson. He's the 9th Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese in New Hampshire. And I think I got it right this
You did.
time.
Congratulations. We have Episcopalians that don't get it right. So,
in your talk, and I encourage you, we're going to put Bishop Robinson's talk down below on the website here, and you'll be able to click and watch the whole talk, and it'll help you to understand what I'm about to ask. In your talk, you talked about the arc of morality. What was your term?
I was quoting Dr. King, who said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
And I think everyone who fights for justice believes that, because one goes through sometimes, right?
It
ain't looking that way.
Right.
But over the course of human history, that seems to be borne out. But still, Dr. King and yourself, very involved in a real struggle.
Absolutely.
It's not like you depend on this bending. You get involved in
it's
making
not
it happen.
automatic. It doesn't relieve us of the responsibility for making it happen.
And the fight for gay rights, gay marriage has been a real struggle.
Sure.
And you're fighting, those forces who are opposing that are very often the same forces who are, talking about death panels and health care, if you dig a little further back into American history, were the same kinds of people involved in McCarthyism. There's this force in America, a very, dark force, if you want. I'm sure they don't see it that way, but at any rate. How do you see that struggle should be waged? How do you combine what you say is love your enemy, but you don't have to like them?
Yeah. I think the struggle against the forces of darkness, however described in whatever form it takes, needs to be fierce and sustained and very, very strong. I think the difference is that what I would argue for, that I said in my talk that loving your enemy has nothing whatsoever to do with liking your enemy. I think it means that for me as a Christian, I am never given the license to treat my enemy as anything less than a child of God. So it means that when lies are told about me, or my cause, or my church, or whatever, I don't tell lies back. I do speak the truth back, and it means that I don't resort to the kinds of tactics that I would describe as immoral to fight an immoral attack on me. Returning evil for evil. I've never quite understood why a couple of the Gospels say that Jesus was silent at his own trial. And now, after the last 6 years of being in the sort of the storm that I've been in, I've understood that sometimes the only way to end the evil is to let it stop with you. And because the temptation to return evil for evil is so strong and so seductive that sometimes you just have to let it stop with you.
And over the last 20, 30 years, as we've seen the rise both in terms on the abortion question, on gay rights question, a lot of the people who believe on the opposite side of what you believe are ordinary working people. And who on many other kinds of issues, one would think, and those who believe in social justice could connect with those people. Has there been a failing on the side of kind of liberal, progressive America to kind of demonize who they're talking to?
Yeah, I think both sides, each side demonizes the other. I think the antidote to that is to believe, as I do, that opposition, regardless of the issue, comes out of fear. It actually doesn't come out of hatred. It comes out of fear. Now, I get that this could be seen as a very arrogant position for me to take. I know what's wrong with them, they're just afraid. I don't mean it that way. But what I do think we have failed to do is to ask the question, what are they afraid of? And then try to speak to that, not to the presenting issue. So, for instance, I've discovered in the fight around gay and lesbian rights, what people in churches fear is that if they give in on this issue, the next thing to go will be the resurrection, the Trinity, all the things that we've ever believed in. It's not that they're so negative and hateful about gay and lesbian people. They see it as the first of many destructive things that will happen to their faith. So rather than just talking about the gay and lesbian issue, I try to speak to that fear. I try to talk about how conservative theologically I am. I use the language they use. If I'm with an evangelical group, I've got Jesus in every sentence. And part of that is to convince them that the fear they feel is unfounded. And they don't have to be so fearful.
And is part of this fear, whether it's to do with gay rights or on some of the other issues, is there this sort of is there this feeling amongst people that there's this sort of chaos about to knock on their door, and any kind of major change opens the door to disorder and chaos? They don't know where it all goes.
And that doesn't just come from observing society. It has been generated. We've seen for the last 8 years an administration that actually encouraged anxiety. Massive, wide-scale anxiety. I mean, the classic example, of course, are the color coding of fear at the airport. You know, if it goes from a yellow day to an orange day, you know, we're not told what's going to happen, where it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, or how to avoid it. Just be more anxious. Because they learned that if they could make us anxious enough, then they could pretty much get anything they wanted. So it's not just observation, it's actually believing what we're being fed. And you know, part of my hope in this new administration is that we won't be trying to motivate people by fear. You still hear it on the talk radio and so on. You've got, you know, the talk of the death panels, talk of you're not going to be able to have your own doctor, all of that kind of stuff. It's a very potent tactic, but ultimately I think it's an immoral distortion of the truth. Instead of speaking the truth, because you can argue this a couple of different ways, but they're not trying to do that.
There's a lot of truth in their fear. Their life is changing.
That's why it's so believable.
The economy is crashing.
Absolutely.
The world as they knew it is never going to return.
The government's never taken over GM before.
But is there a problem that this election of this administration, President Obama talked about change you can believe in. He sold a vision, and now what we're getting is not a continued fight and reality of a new vision. He keeps saying, well, don't worry, nothing's really going to change. You can still keep your own insurance. You know, there's a message of, don't worry, things aren't really going to change. And instead, so we left kind of just with ambiguousness. We actually don't know what it is anymore.
Well, what we understand is that this Wednesday night he's going to be laying out quite specifically what he's going to fight for. If there was any mistake in the approach so far, let's remember this is going to take a while, and the approach so far, I think he should have put out his plan at the get-go. I think he was trying to be true to his words of letting a lot of people come to the table, let the House, let the Senate struggle with the bill. I think in retrospect, we'll probably feel that it would have been better for him to just come out and say what his plan is. And as you say, in the middle of the ambiguousness, you know, people's fears run wild.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for joining us on the Real News Network.